Back with our conversation with Democratic gubernatorial candidate Tina Kotek. Victims advocates and also former prosecutors, they object to Governor Brown's initiative for prisoner clemencies, letting people out early. They say it lets dangerous people back out on the streets. Do you think those clemencies should be revoked, revisited? What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I think the number one goal of a governor is to keep people safe. I have not agreed with some of the decisions that Governor Brown has made when it relates to using the power of clemency and commutation. As governor, making sure that if I ever use that, making sure we're transparent with the victims and their families. I think that's really important, making sure people aren't surprised by these decisions and actually understand the process. I think that has not happened under Governor Brown, and that has caused a lot of the pushback.
What about the moratorium on the death penalty?
Yeah, you know, that began with Governor John Kitzhaber. There's a lot of studies to show that, you know, keeping people on death row is actually not, you know, it's a very expensive endeavor. But for me, it's a personal issue as a woman of faith. I don't believe in the death penalty. I would keep the moratorium. I think that is good public policy, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Your campaign ads emphasize you as a pro-choice candidate. Since abortion is legal in Oregon, it seems to be solidly legal. It's really not high on the list of Oregon voter priorities. So why emphasize abortion when the Oregon electorate sees more pressing issues?
Well, I think after the Supreme Court overturned 50 years of precedent with Roe v. Wade, it has become an issue of intensity, particularly for women here in our state who for the first time know that the Supreme Court is not protecting their right to control their body. Here in Oregon, I helped pass the strongest reproductive health care law, including abortion, to protect access to health care. I think it's important for people to understand that the governor is that person who makes sure we have those protections. And Christine Drazan wants to ban abortion. She's supported by an extremist group that wants to ban abortion. She even co-sponsored a piece of legislation that said doctors could be held criminally liable, send them to jail if they, you know, do abortions. I think people have to understand that as governor, I will protect a person's right to control their body, and that means access to abortion. And I don't believe we can trust either of my opponents to be a strong champion on this issue. And it's important to people, and that's why I'm talking about it.
Yeah, the state allocated about $15 million to help people come to Oregon to receive abortion services from other states, mostly Idaho, coming to Oregon for those abortion services. Do you agree with that? Should we put more money into that? What do you think?
Well, I think that fund is very important right now because I think, well, first of all, I would say it's affecting Oregonians right now. If we think about the Oregonians who live on the border with Idaho, remember, they're in a different time zone. They literally get their health care in Idaho. Idaho has a near total ban on abortion. And they're even talking to folks not to talk about contraceptives. So Oregonians right now in Eastern Oregon are having to travel to Bend and Portland to get care, reproductive health care, not just abortion. That fund is helping them cover travel costs, hotel costs, whatever it is, so they can get health care. And I believe that we have to prioritize access to health care. This is a new day in our country. I want to make sure anybody who needs it has access to health care.
Oregon's public employee retirement system, or PERS, has a growing deficit, into the billions now. That leads to our next viewer question. This is from Larry in Lake Oswego. What is your position on PERS? And I would take that a little further and say, how do we fix PERS?
Well, our pension system is one of the best funded systems in the country. It's a statewide system that provides retirement security for our public employees. We have made reforms over the last decade that have improved the stability of the system. And at this point, we are on a path to continue to be able to pay down our unfunded liability, the debt that's in the system. Right now, I don't think we need to make any changes. What I think we need to do is make sure we can retain and recruit public employees. Right now, we don't have Oregonians who want to work for state or local or government because they're being recruited away to work at Amazon. We need our public servants, and that is part of the draw to have people come and work for the state.
While you were Speaker, Governor Brown instituted pandemic guidelines, including masking, remote learning, that we now find has put Oregon students behind where they should be academically. So The legislature's 2019 Student Success Act raised about $1 billion in corporate taxes to put towards education. Are you satisfied with the implementation of this? And for a lot of people, they aren't seeing the results. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad we have that $1 billion more per year in our schools because of my leadership. I will say that my opponents both don't support what we've done. They literally would take money out of our schools when right now we need it more than ever. So those resources are there. As the next governor, my job is to make sure districts are using the dollars they were intended for, increasing our graduation rates, providing mental health supports for our students, making sure we have more career and technical education. I just sat down with some high school students the other day and I asked them what they needed. It's exactly that. Lower class sizes, more mental health supports, career and technical education, all the things the Student Success Act was designed to support. So as governor, making sure the districts are doing the work, meeting the goals. I know the pandemic was hard, but we have to get students reading by 3rd grade. We have to make sure more students are graduating. And as governor, I'm not going to take no for an answer. We have to have high expectations for our students to succeed.
Well, just looking at that, that seems to be one of the criticisms of state government is that even when we have the money and we come up with initiatives, the implementation of them has been lacking in many cases. How do we bridge that divide? How do we bridge that gap?
You know, honestly, I think that's a fair criticism. As a legislator, my job was to pass budgets and bills to help Oregonians. And I'm tired of seeing those promises not fully delivered on. So that means, as governor, making sure our state agencies are driven by accountability and customer service, making sure the dollars are getting into the communities, at the schools, the mental health treatment facilities, whoever needs those dollars, that they're getting there. And that is going to take increased management, attention to detail in our state government. And it's part of the reason I'm running. We need to solve problems, and state government has to be more effective than it currently is now.
In terms of accountability, how do we keep people accountable for making sure the money is spent the way it's supposed to be?
Well, I think there's a number of ways. It starts at the top. As governor, making sure the heads of our agencies understand the expectations, and if they're not doing the job, they're not going to have a job. Making sure that when we say we're going to get people housed, how many people did we get housed this month? How are we doing next month? You have to have targets. And right now, I feel like it's a little loosey-goosey, and we don't have clear expectations for our state agencies to perform. That's going to change when I'm governor, because that's what Oregonians need to see. They need to see progress and success.
We've got about a minute left. 40% of Oregon voters are unaffiliated or independent. That's among the highest percentage in the nation. How do you get those voters and undecideds who will be the difference in this race to vote for you?
Well, first of all, we're tops in the nation in terms of getting people registered to vote. We've worked really hard at that. So people are going to get their ballots and their voter pamphlets here in a couple weeks. I am taking nothing for granted. We're going to talk to as many voters as we can. We have a great coalition knocking on doors, making phone calls, neighbors talking to neighbors. This is such an important election. The future of our state is at stake here. Do we want to go forward, or do we want to have a version of Oregon that's moving to the right? That's what my opponents are offering. They're offering a version of a right-wing Oregon that doesn't respect the values of Oregonians. And I am going to make sure that I get my message out so people do want to vote and hopefully vote for me.
Tina Kotek, thank you for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you, Ken. Good to see you.
We'll be right back.